How's it going? Jay Allen here, once again. It has been a while. There's a lot of issues that's been going on with my life. I can address those and I cannot address those. That's a different thing. I've moved. I'm going to address it. Fuck it. I've moved. It's coming towards the end of a load of exams and coursework that I have to do, so obviously I have to focus on that. And probably the biggest thing, well, those were the biggest things, but the biggest thing with regards to the content itself, I did stop watching WWE for a while, and well, recently I've cancelled my network subscription. Does that mean I'm going to stop watching again? No. It's something that I've been a fan of for over 15 years. It's a big part of my life. So let's talk about it. Um, WWE as it stands right now is possibly in its worst period that it's been in for years, if not longer. Last week's Raw, last week, just for reference, which would have been the 26th of November. That was the. I mean, a lot of people are saying this, and I don't want to just jump on bandwagon for the sake of it. But that was unequivocally the worst episode of Raw that I have ever watched. A lot of people are saying in history. Obviously, I can't judge it based on that because I've not seen every single Raw episode. But it's definitely the worst one that I've ever watched, and so many variables. Um, Baron Corbin took up a third of that show. I think someone did the actual statistics with regards to how long he was on screen for, and it was about an hour and something, which, for a character who's not exactly blessed on the mic, not exactly blessed in the ring, and he is, well, as he's been presented for the past couple of months, just a corporate stooge. For someone at that stage to be receiving that much screen time when you have legitimate stars in the back that really aren't getting the time that they deserve, like the Revival, for example. 2 weeks in a row, the Revival have been completely screwed over, and actually led to, well, during the show for this week, they actually tweeted back at the Young Bucks and said that one day the Revival versus the Young Bucks is going to happen and everyone's going to be happy. And to be fair, they're probably not wrong with the way they're being treated right now, because quite frankly, if I was one of the top tag teams in one branch of the industry, moved over to supposedly the bigger part, didn't change my style, didn't change my look, my aesthetic, my character, anything, and I just decided to get treated like a jobber, I wouldn't be too happy. Like the paychecks are one thing, but when you've lost that mystique and you can't be taken seriously as a tag team, what even is the point? Because the issue with the Revival was that at Survivor Series they were actually booked a little bit strong. Like when they got to the last part and it was them versus New Day and the Usos, I was thinking, hold on, maybe they'll pull the trigger here. Maybe they'll finally give Revival some sort of a push. And they did get eliminated by the Usos, but not before removing the New Day, which was actually a big thing. Because New Day still are one of the biggest tag teams, even if they've lost a lot of their momentum that they once had. But come to next week on Raw, and they're losing again. To who? Lucha House Party. Lucha House Party is one of the worst things on WWE programming right now. It's three lackluster guys who are supposed to be faces, but they're doing heelish things, like the Lucha House Party rules thing. What is that? That's essentially what Corbin's doing with his matches. It's just allowing people to have free reign of whatever the hell they want to do with the match, handicap or otherwise. Like, do you really expect one guy to go up against three and have any sort of fighting chance? Really? The Lucha House Party, despite the fact that they're meant to be faces, they're heels. And the heels that aren't getting a reaction. no one really cares. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from all the entire situation surrounding Raw right now. Obviously, I've just talked about Revival. I'm going to move on to a load of other things. But the situation with WWE right now is that no one seems to care. The amount of arenas that they go to that are almost half empty. Like you see the pictures. You know, this week's episode of Raw, the side away from the camera, they didn't show it on air. Why? Because it was almost completely empty. And this is coming after last week's episode. Last week, which, as I said, was the worst one I ever watched. This week didn't do much to improve it. Now, they did do one good thing that I am going to actually praise them on this, but it's just too little, too late. You know, especially with the character itself. Finn Balor got booked as a legitimate star in this week's episode of Raw, an actual star. You know, interfered in one match, got him a win. Interfered in another match, got him a win. Interfered in a segment, well, got a heel hit with a guitar. I think he interfered with two matches at least. No, yeah. Got an assist and got a win over someone who he's a former world champion. Like Jinder Mahal is a former world champion. How are we getting to that point? Um, let's not get into that part. But and then in the end, he got taken out by someone who is a much bigger threat than him, physically and in kayfabe, shall we say? But he did it from behind. I think that's the biggest takeaway. That in the absence of the top face in Roman Reigns, no matter what we thought of him, I'll get into that later on as well. But in the absence of a top face, they really needed someone to build to that role, especially when Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins is a feud that could go on for a couple of pay-per-view cycles. Um, they need someone to fill that role, and they don't have that. I mean, Braun Strowman's there, sure, but he's going to be either chasing the world title or going up against Baron Corbin for the next, I presume, up until the pre-Mania pay-per-view. So the fact that Finn Balor's being pushed into that position is a very good thing, and that's one good thing from this entire episode um, that we can actually praise them on. But the Alexa Bliss, contrary to actual opinion, I actually like Alexa Bliss in the GM role because I need to stop saying her so much. Just because it actually fits her. Like Alexa Bliss was never someone who necessarily looked like she was a top tier athlete in the ring. Was she improving her skills like mad? Yes, she was. Would I put her on the same bracket as someone like Becky, someone like Charlotte, Bailey? No, I wouldn't. She was certainly mid tier though, you know. So the fact that they've taken that away from her, there's a lot of rumors on the internet surrounding like concussion issues and neck issues and all that stuff. Rumors are rumors. Like you've got to take that sort of stuff into account here. You can read all you want, but as until some a point where it's actually concrete, so if it either comes from the wrestler's mouth or the company's mouth, it's just a rumor. Which is why I'm not going to believe the concussion issue is leading to her retirement. What I will say, I like her in the role of GM. This week's episode, she actually did a good job. Uh, Ronda was a decent foil. She actually dealt with that situation well. The Bailey situation, she actually sort of switched allegiances from her team and gave Bailey and Sasha Banks a decent chance against this team. But Alexa Bliss has had a hand in some of the worst segments in Monday Night Raw in the past couple of years. The open forums over the past 2 weeks aren't doing much to improve that image. They have both been dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. A waste of time. The only thing of note that's actually happened within them is that Bailey and Sasha Banks actually mentioned the women's tag team titles live on air. That's a big step for the women's division. There's been cries of a women's tag division for absolutely years. And especially with the size of the women's roster at this stage and the exposure that they're getting, Evolution, I'm not going to lie about this. Evolution was the single best pay per view of this year. Hands down. That's not NXT, obviously. The single best main roster pay per view of the year. Is that because it doesn't have my favorite human being on the fucking planet, Brock Lesnar, in it? Maybe. But it was. It had the best wrestling, it had nostalgia, it had feel good moments. Becky versus Charlotte in that match, top notch. One of my favorite matches this year. One of. But women's tag division needs to exist. If nothing else, we need to look at SmackDown for that. The Iconics, Deville and Rose, Sasha Banks. Well, moving over to Raw. Sasha Banks and Bailey. Even to an extent, Asuka and Naomi. You know, like there's so many tag teams that could be formed from this that it's a wonder as to why they haven't done it before. So that could be a potential thing, but that doesn't take away from the fact that the segments were horrible. The run-ins don't make sense. Dana Brooke, if you watched Starcade over the weekend, last weekend of course, um, Dana Brooke was actually teaming with Bailey and Sasha Banks, and then the next day on Raw, she's attacking them. You know, that's sort of like Big Show levels of face heel turns. You know, because it's a running joke, of course. Big Show's heel turns and face turns. Came back, turned heel, and then turned face about a week later. That's Big Show for you. Not going to distract from anything that man's done. That guy is an absolute treasure. The fact that he actually came back from surgery like that at his age, absolute hero, honestly. But moving on from those segments, I'm leaving Baron Corbin for a bit because there's a lot of stuff with that entire situation that I actually want to go into. Um, Brock Lesnar, just because I mentioned him, why is Brock Lesnar champion? Do I think that if Roman Reigns didn't have to leave, that he'd still be champion? It's hard to say. It looked like they were going to keep the belt on Reigns for a while just because of obviously Brock's move to UFC. But at the same time, it's WWE. You never know. It doesn't really make sense. You know, having the belt back on Brock, the belt's missing again. It just doesn't make sense from a business perspective. You know, it's not the WWE and I think a lot of fans and a lot of the people backstage need to realize this. WWE is as their tagline is entertainment. It's sports entertainment. How are you expecting your crowd to be entertained when the main champion, despite the fact that the WWE champion exists on SmackDown, you're presenting the Universal champion as your main champion? Sure, we'll go with that. But how are you gonna expect anyone to take your product seriously when your main champion is not appearing? Fair enough if he doesn't want to appear on a weekly basis. Fair enough if he doesn't want to appear on a bi-weekly basis. Brock's last appearance, eh, I can't even tell you. And that's Paul Heyman does a very good job with Brock Lesnar. You know, he's got a thing where he actually, even if he comes out without Brock, he does build the hype for him. But at the same time, I'm not too happy with the fact that Brock's champion again. I don't like Brock Lesnar. I've made my opinion clear on that. I think he's lazy. I think he's there just for the money, which a lot of people are, but he doesn't give a single Well, he doesn't give a single shit to about anyone in the back, about the fans. He just cares that he's getting paid. And it's just disappointing. Last we saw Brock Lesnar was at Survivor Series. We've not seen him since. We've not heard from him since. And Stephanie has actually outright said that we're not going to see him till January. In a match, at least. Will we see him before that? Probably not. Maybe for like the week before Raw, on Raw. But that's just the thing. He anyone else does that. Anyone else in that sort of situation that does that, they would get fired. You would, even if you are on that sort of contract. Oh, you want to dictate the hours that you work, despite the fact that I'm your boss? Sure, why not? Oh, you want all these perks, despite the fact that you're never going to show up? Sure. Oh, you want the title, despite the fact that you're gonna go fight on a different brand? Sure. It's amazing that he actually gets away with this stuff. It's not stuff that you or I could get away with, but I guess power, right? I mean, I don't imagine there's many people in WWE that would actually get away with that sort of contract, being able to take off days whenever the fuck you want. Randy Orton, right? He has a contract which actually allows him a lot more free time than other full time talent. But he's someone that's been an active full time member for 16 years, wrestling over 100 shows a year, non stop for the past 16 years. So if at this stage in his career he wants not to work as many live events so he can be at home with his family, I don't think that's too out of the question. Working about 15 days a year just because you want to, how is that considered a smart business move? Because it doesn't build hype for him. The fans don't even want to see him anymore. They don't get excited when he comes out. It's just a daft situation. But I could sit here and rant for Brock Lesnar for about an hour. But there's a lot more to cover. So, you know what? Let's just address the elephant in the room. Roman Reigns. I'm only covering this now just because I felt like I didn't have the right words to say, if I'm honest. I have been a pretty vocal advocate for or against Roman Reigns, but never because of his in-ring skills. You can actually go back and listen to the podcast before, and you'll realize that I think Roman Reigns is a damn fine in-ring performer. Was his character always good? No. Were his promos good? No. Is that all down to him? No. So naturally, it was a bit of a shock. We knew we knew he had taken a week or two off with some sort of mystery illness, and well, as soon as he actually gave that speech, we realized that was probably to do a load of tests and checks just to make sure it wasn't what they would have thought it was. Sadly, that was the case, and basically, he's probably never going to hear this. But Roman Reigns, I wish you all the best. You beat it once, you're gonna beat it again, and we only hope we can see you come back stronger. Whether that's in active competition, whether that's just as a human being. I can't fault you for the human being that you are. You're a damn good father, and from what I can see, you're a damn good person. Just you will beat this. So the less time I spend on that, the better. I just got the message out of the way. But yeah, it took us a bit by surprise. So that was that factor. So, while we're on a big subject, Becky Lynch. Now, the rise of Becky Lynch. I think it's well documented how big of a fan I am of Becky Lynch. I've spoken about it on previous podcasts. I think Becky Lynch is fantastic. Character work. The widespread fan base is seeing it now. What her close fans, I say close, her bigger fans have been for years. Becky's character work right now is at its best. They tried to turn her heel, which didn't work out because the crowd were just fully behind it. So now she's sort of in that phase of, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want, which works. A lot of people are comparing it to Stone Cold. A lot of people are comparing it to other sort of anarchist characters. They need to stop that. Becky Lynch is Becky Lynch, and she's doing a damn good job of it. Revitalized her career. It actually gave her some straight fire, pun intended. The Charlotte heel turn was very well executed. Absolutely phenomenal. The match itself was good. Her breakdown afterwards, very well done. Didn't expect the justification that she had on Raw afterwards. I thought she'd go full on in with the heel sort of I'm better than everyone here sort of thing, whereas she's sort of going against Becky again, despite the hug that they had. So I don't know about that. I'm hoping it becomes a bit clearer soon. The TLC match between her, Asuka, and Becky is going to be fucking great. I can already tell that. But Becky's on fire. You know, when the entire industry, wrestlers from other promotions are talking about you in the light that they're talking about Becky Lynch, you know you're doing something right. So, that brings me to Facebreaker. Now, Nia Jax. Nia Jax is a talentless charisma vacuum. And that's me being nice. If you actually, if any of my friends are listening to this, you know my true feelings on Nia Jax. I absolutely hate the woman. She's got the spot because of her relationships, familial, obviously, and she stayed there. Now, I'm not exactly the most trim guy, but Nia Jax has access to the best nutritionists, the best fitness coaches, and she has a lot of money. So I don't really see an excuse for her size, first off. And with that size comes the obvious, which is how limited her reactions are. She's not able to react as fast as the rest of the women on the roster. Now, even Tamina's far slimmer than her. And it's not to say Nia Jax can't be skinny. I mean, if you look at her modeling shoot, she was at some point she was still plus size, but she was I don't want to say skinny. She was slimmer. Um, I don't know why I'm just criticizing the weight in this sense. That's obviously one issue. The biggest issue I have with Nia Jax is the fact that she can't cut promo. We've seen that over the past couple of weeks. You know, they're trying to capitalize on the heat that she's been getting because of the Becky situation, and she can't. This past week on Raw, and last week as well, the reaction she got doesn't exist. And that's because people are finally taking on board the advice that they've been given, which is don't give her reactions. If you don't want to see her, don't react, and they will take her off air. Thank God that people are actually paying attention to that. Because we don't want to see her on air. She can't cut a promo, she can't do jokes, she can't act natural. Tamina, her own tag partner, her own family, was laughing at her during her promo. That's live on air. If that doesn't tell you that she doesn't have faith, well, that no one really has faith in her, fair enough. The only reason that she's on air right now is because of the heat that she's got. Now, I want to talk about that punch. Now, mistakes happen. I can excuse that, of course. It's an industry that is physical, that you are bound to get injured. There are chances for stuff to happen. But you'll see a lot about the fact that closed fist punching is an illegal move in wrestling. If you think that's a surprise, go listen to good old JR about it. Closed fist punching is actually illegal. So even in a scrap like that, a full-on brawl, as soon as you close your fist like that and throw that punch, with the force that she did, because they did replay it a fair bit, you can see the amount of force that she put into it, and you can see to what extent that the damage that she caused was foreseeable. If you throw a closed fist at someone's nose, especially with the ham hock sized flipping hand that she has, do you not think that you're going to cause some sort of pain? If not a broken nose, you're at least going to hurt, give them some bruising. So, yes, mistakes can happen, and mistakes do happen. Could she have prevented that? Yeah. Was there any need to throw that punch? No. But I think it proves how much of a badass Becky Lynch is when she still got up and finished the entire segment. Again, props to Becky. Nia, the less reaction that we give her now, the better it is for everyone, because she's finally gonna get taken off her. And once this push dies down, and she's only getting a push for a temporary basis, believe you me, she'll finally get taken off her, which is better for everyone. I mean, Ember Moon's husband came at her. Yeah, he put out a tweet recently which basically said, "Keep that unsafe worker from injuring my wife again." It's just, I've never seen that extent of united hatred against someone other than Donald Trump. It's marvelous. But anyway, moving on from that, Baron Corbin. Let's actually talk about this. I don't like the GM Corbin character. It's just too much. From a guy who was being touted as a lone wolf and was supposed to be the next Undertaker sort of thing, to go from that to corporate stooge with Lady Bollocks as King Ross. Sorry, King Ross. From Colt Holic would say. Lady Bollocks has his bollocks in a vice. It's just strange to think that someone can go from one character to another in that sort of drasticity. I don't even think that's a word. I'm making it a word. I don't care. To go from lone wolf badass to GM corporate stooge, it doesn't really work that well, you know. But he's come across as nothing but just snivelly, a bit stupid, god complex, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's the character he's portraying, but it's just so lackluster. There's nothing to the character itself. It's just your basic bitch GM being controlled by a McMahon, of course. So to see him for an hour on last week's Raw, didn't like it. As much as I am a fan of Drew McIntyre, and I think this is some of the best character work that he's doing, and obviously his in-ring skills have improved considerably since he was last in WWE. I don't like that entire angle. I don't like Bobby Lashley's character. Bobby Lashley is Brock Lesnar without the mouthpiece. Limited in ring, same sort of size. Obviously got the amateur background. How's no one picked up on this parallel before? Oh wait, they have. But Bobby Lashley doesn't get that same level of hype because he lacks two things. One, the natural charisma. As much as I hate Brock, he has mystique. When he comes out, you take it seriously. Bobby doesn't have that. I mean, the stage he's currently at. Yeah, he's been given a mouthpiece, but the mouthpiece is telling the crowd to look at his flipping ass. How are you meant to take a man seriously when you're being told, look at that ass? I don't know why I did the accent. Leo Rush is so annoying. And he's meant to be, yes, but it's just the voice, it grates your ears. It's horrible. There's a lot wrong with WWE right now. A million different things. Vince wrote the majority. No, Vince wrote all of Raw, from what I've read. A lot of trusted sources, but like I said, rumors are rumors. Apparently, Vince wrote Raw last week, and he might have wrote a bit of it this week. Which, to be fair, based on his past hatred of Finn Balor, I'd highly doubt. But Vince writing Raw last week, actually, if it is true, it proves something that the fans, critics, journalists have all been saying for absolutely years, which is Vince is losing his touch. And to some extent, I think he's realizing that himself, which is obviously why he's relaunching XFL. So, to have him just take over and write an entire episode like that is. It goes beyond my realms of understanding. It just. I don't understand. When you have someone that is clearly capable of driving a franchise to success in the way that Triple H has, to the point where he's opened up a new promotion in England and he's running that successfully, why would you still hold control when there's clearly someone with an eye for the future instead of for the past? It doesn't make any sense. If you watch NXT, by the way, it I don't know why you wouldn't. NXT is putting out some of the best content across wrestling, week after week after week. NXT Takeover War Games 2 was probably the best NXT Takeover. And I don't say that lightly, because every single takeover has been good. There's hardly ever a bad match. And even when a bad match on NXT is a great match on the main roster. See if you like, for example, Shayna Baszler versus Kairi Sane wasn't terribly great, and I say terribly great because it didn't get given the same amount of time or the same sort of play around with the stipulation that they could have. They still had their fun moments, and it was still a damn fine wrestling match. Velveteen Dream versus Tommaso Ciampa, absolutely phenomenal. Velveteen Dream, you could see his growth over the past year. He's gone from that match with Aleister Black to bona fide star. Dream has possibly, outside of Becky, the best character work in WWE. I didn't think that Prince sort of character would work in WWE, and he's made it work. Velveteen Dream is absolutely special. And the fact that he's the age that he is, with the amount of time that he's spent in wrestling, and he's better than about 75% of the people on the main roster, shows a lot. But, and you want him to stay in NXT because he's just going to get misused on the main roster. He's going to be comedic talent. Vince McMahon, as he has proven with the Drake Maverick peeing thing. I'm not even going to get started on that. But Vince is just going to bring him up to main roster because, haha, look, funny gay dude. You know that's what it's going to descend to. If a man can find a grown man peeing to be funny, how is he going to take anything seriously? Do you know what? Now that I've mentioned it, Drake Maverick peeing is the single stupidest booking decision this year. Right? Not only does it take a complete full head of steam away from the AOP, because their manager who brought them this new level of power is now just a comedy gag. Not only does it take that away from them, but it just means that when they do eventually lose their titles, they're probably going to fade back into obscurity. It just doesn't make sense. Why did Vince think that grown men would find a grown man peeing funny? It's, it's just the questionable decisions just keep piling on and on and on. Took a break from discussing NXT, didn't I? Black versus Gargano was a damn fine match. It was what it needed to be. It was Gargano getting his shots in, but Black ultimately making him pay. I'm fine with that. The War Games bout was special. That was hands down my favorite match of the year. It is my match of the year. I'm calling it right now. There won't be a better one. There's not enough time. It is the best match of the year. By far. And that's saying something in a year where there's been some damn fine wrestling. It was so good. Had everything. Spot fests, high flying spots, ground wrestling. Just the perfect sort of thing, really. Matt Riddle versus Cassius Ohno. That was hilarious. You know, I think it's one of the top 10 shortest matches in WWE history, which is a big thing to land someone in like only a second week of official TV time, of course. And I'm pretty sure I'm missing a match, which I'm gonna hit myself in the face for soon. But God's sakes, what was what was the last match? It was no, I'm not missing much actually. Right, never mind. It was just 4 matches. I thought it was longer. But when to go from that to Survivor Series the next day was just horrible. Um, Survivor Series felt like it was a complete spite against Fox because Fox we know are trying to push a lot of changes to SmackDown, which is fair enough if they're going to be competing against another show on another channel. Of course they want that, even if there's continuity between the shows themselves. But yeah, not only did they completely destroy the credibility of the tag team division by saying that their match didn't count, but a complete whitewash to Raw. Really? Really? I mean, we know Vince is a spiteful creature, and we've seen that in the past. But when you're trying so hard to push one show as your main show, and that it's so much better than the other one, especially in physical competition, why on earth are you taking every step to make it worse than the other one on a weekly basis? SmackDown is the A show. It has been for a few years. But even SmackDown can't save WWE right now. NXT can't save WWE right now because they're not taking it seriously. Main roster talent when they come to NXT now, completely forgotten what they've done in NXT. And that's a shame. The only one that's actually had their NXT record somewhat mentioned is Asuka. It's just a bit confusing, you know? WWE's at a point right now where a lot of people are tuning off. A lot. And the people that are still tuning in aren't really doing it because they particularly want to. It's just stagnating right now. There needs to be a big shift. There needs to be something big that happens to change something. Because as it stands, WWE isn't. It's just going further and further downhill. The ratings decline is a clear indication of that. If you're losing an audience, you need to do something to win them back, not make it worse. That's just simple business. Which you'd think that Vince McMahon would know. But anyway, I've not spoken about anything Marvel related because obviously it's supposed to be well, the Sarcasmania podcast was primarily meant for wrestling, but I guess we can make it Marvel related as well. So that's an issue for another day. Um, I'm gonna cut this over here again, as usual. If you somehow make it to the end of my videos, you're a goddamn hero. Like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys for the next one.